and this is the Nonprofit Corner Podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. And welcome to the Nonprofit Corner Podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. And I have another great guest today. It's MeganJoseph, and we're going to learn all about her extensive history in the nonprofit sector. But she's really going to be talking about a topic that's close to my heart. But before I keep talking on, let me introduce MeganJoseph. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I want my listeners to be able to know who you are. So I don't like to read bios. That's just me. Just give us some idea of how you got to be where you are today, you know, your specialty and things like that. Give us a little track record here.
Okay, I'll try not to go on and on.
Doesn't matter. Hey, we're not on a timer.
Story. I'll hit the highlights. Let's see. So thanks so much for this opportunity. You know, nonprofits have been a part of my life since I can remember. And I think they're a hugely important part of the ecosystem of communities thriving in our country and all over the world, frankly. And I think that there's ways that we can increase our impact. So that's something that I've been really passionate about. I remember growing up thinking certain systems that I was exposed to through, you know, family member crises, etc. I was like, these aren't working for people, and yet we're forced to use them. How can we make this better? That's always been this framework of what could we be doing differently to have a greater impact and have greater results. So I sort of meandered through life with that lens, exploring everything from criminal justice reform and a couple of degrees in that area. And then also community organizing and really looking at, you know, how do we activate our communities on the ground to create change and have everyone see themselves as a leader. So I've held roles from executive director to admin and everything in between. I always say it's important that we never not roll up our sleeves. I'm there to set up the meeting and buy the snacks and stuff the envelopes as much as I'm there to lead the training and all the things in between. So it's been an incredible journey. And about 6 years ago, we founded our own organization called Impact Launch. And we are all consultants that are also on the ground in nonprofits and have been in all of those different roles, all the things that it takes for nonprofits to operate, we've done. And I think that's one of the unique things about all of us is that we know we've been there, we've done that, and now we're helping people.
And I think that's a lot of all of our stories, especially the consultants that come back to give back to the nonprofit sector.
I love that.
We've been in those trenches, and we sort of see the gaps because we were left sort of handicapped in terms of, okay, so what do I do here? You know?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Not always a guidebook, a tool book, or instructions to take it. And so many of especially the guests I've had on here, even my history, it's about I saw these gaps and just wanted to fill them. And you're another example of someone that was in the sector, saw where there was a need. And I love the name Impact Launch, because I have a program called Social Impact. So
that's right.
So impact is an important word.
Yes.
Totally get it. And so tell us more about Impact Launch, your actual company and business.
Yeah, sure. So we are a collective of social impact practitioners. So we're all have played different roles, as I mentioned, and some still do in the nonprofit and social impact sector. Some of us, there's one city council member in our collective. There's folks that work for the County Office of Education. And so we've all have our hands in different specialty areas and expertise areas and experience areas. And we work together and really tailor who's going to work on what based on their experience and expertise for our clients. And we specialize in a few different things. Leadership development, really looking at transformational leadership. How do we
Love it,
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Not just, a lot of leadership these days, especially, is actually management. When we talk about leadership, and leadership
Absolutely.
programs that are
I've done a
focused on
whole
management.
training on intentional leadership, where you build a
Exactly.
culture of leadership.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, you're
Yeah.
touching my heart here.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there's so much alignment. Yeah, it's not just about getting things done. It's
Yeah.
about how do we get them done differently, build a culture, build a long-term vision while
Yeah.
meeting our immediate needs, so we're not always scrambling on
Yeah.
that hamster wheel. So that's what we're all about, that transformational leadership, and then that framework, that foundation leads into, and then how do we do everything else differently? So we support board development, strategic planning, capacity building, in a many,
Absolutely.
many different areas based on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about strategic planning a little bit later. We'll
Exactly.
get to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But okay, so I'm involved in a lot of launches. One of the
Mhm.
services as a consultant, not outside of the foundation, is
Yeah.
I help people start their nonprofit. That
Yes.
is, file the paperwork. But they think, oh, it's just about filing paperwork. But I
Mm.
try to explain to them, there's a whole lot you need to think about and do before you even get to that paperwork
That's right.
segment. And just going to get a little bit of your input, because I was
Mm.
actually writing a blog about it today.
Nice.
Things just synchronicity is just happening here.
Uh-huh.
And I was creating an e-guide on the difference between a business plan and
Mm.
a program plan
Mm.
for
Mhm.
nonprofits, which
Yeah.
many times, and I mean, I love the organizations like SCORE and small business
Uh-huh.
development centers, and the
Yep.
community groups that help people. They go in and ask for the help, but most of them are business executives,
Mhm.
and they come
Mhm.
from a for-profit perspective. And
Yes.
one of the very first things they ask is, have you done your business plan?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that is not the question they need to be asking if
Right.
you're a nonprofit.
That's right.
It should be, have you done your program plan? So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on
Interesting. I love the synergy here. Yeah. One of the tenets of our strategic planning, and we're launching this do-it-yourself strategic planning course for nonprofits that are
yeah,
small and medium and trying to get started, um, is that most strategic planning comes from a corporate lens as well, and it's not hitting the right marks. We're not asking the right questions. We're not. So I don't think actually that it's an either or. I think nonprofits do need to have a solid business plan in place, but it needs to be driven by the program plan.
absolutely. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you said, and
Yeah.
because my thing is, look at the program plan first. I used to
First.
teach about
Absolutely.
logic module,
Yeah.
program evaluation and development
Yeah.
and all of that stuff when I was teaching
Yeah.
at UNLV. And if you have a good, solid program plan, you
Mhm.
understand what you need.
Yes. Yes.
Then
And
you
then you
can
plan for that.
then you can plan for that,
Hmm.
because your mission is the compass based
Yeah.
off of the programs that you
That's
want to
right.
provide. So
That's right.
it came front of mind
Mm.
because
Mm.
I had been talking to a small business development, and they kept
Hmm.
saying business
Uh-huh.
plan, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, no. I
Yeah.
was I was in that resistance
Yeah.
mode. And so
Yeah.
everybody I've been talking to for the last couple of weeks, I've been
Yeah.
getting their input on
Yeah.
understanding the difference between a business plan
Yeah.
and a program
Hmm.
plan. And then with your saying impact launch, I was like, just the
Yeah.
title there, because
Yeah.
the big difference between a business plan and a program,
Hmm.
that program plan is looking at the impact that you're going to have,
Hmm.
versus
Hmm.
a business plan is looking at profit and loss.
Right. Which is also so important for nonprofits to pay attention to, right?
Yes,
It's a necessary part of the equation, but it shouldn't be the driving force.
right,
Um, yeah.
absolutely. So,
Hmm.
okay, that was my little sidebar, just to
Love it.
get
Yeah.
other professional input on something that I've sort of had my eye on for the last couple of weeks, because it's been coming up so much recently. And then,
Beautiful.
of course, with
Yeah.
your company name, Impact Launch, yeah, I guess
Love
people,
it.
listeners, are going to know your company name is called Impact Launch.
Just in case you were wondering, y'all.
Absolutely. But it is, that title is so apropos
Mm,
of nonprofits' thought pattern, the mindset they need to have, that what is the impact you're going to have when you launch.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Yes.
Hey, what can I say? Okay, so we're going to take a real quick break here, and then we're going to come back and really talk about strategic planning. That's another one of those soapboxes. I get up and stand and wave the flag. But we will be right back with the Nonprofit Corner podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd, in just one moment.
So you want to start a nonprofit, but you have so many questions. Let Dr. Victoria Boyd, with 40 years of experience, help guide you. That's a done-for-you filing. You won't have to worry about a thing.
And welcome back to the Nonprofit Corner podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd, and our very, very special guest today, MeganJoseph. Okay, one of the topics that we're going to be talking about, we just talked about programs and business plans and all of those things to launch, that pre-thought, the before we get into that. But one of the next necessary steps is that strategic plan. And often I see organizations not even get to it to 2 and 3 years down the path, and I'm like,
if ever.
So so what have you been doing all this time? How do you know where you're going, or what you need? Yes, you can base it off of programs somewhat, but it shouldn't be the overall operation systems and management plan and a lot of that comes in the strategic planning process as we go through that. I often start strategic planning, and you can kick me to the curb if you want to, with an innovation session, strategic innovation, where I get them to think bigger, or out, not so focused on, we got to do this, this, and this. Yeah, we'll get to that. Let them have fun creating and being innovative and feeling as if they have they're empowered to do that. And I have found that they come into the strategic planning process a little bit more with an open mind if we do that. So let's get into what you want to really talk about. How to make strategic planning fun, focused, and effective, which love all three of those. And okay, so I just said strategic planning is key. And you said antidote to fundraising issues, burnouts, scatter, wasted time, and not getting the results we want. That's a whole lot in that sentence right there. So let's break it down one by one. Antidote to fundraising issues. Everybody wants to hear about fundraising. So there.
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I think you're just right. If we don't do strategic planning, and so many organizations, if you're starting up or even just have been in place for a long time, don't get around to it. And it might be because they feel they don't have the time, the resources, or it's a waste of time, or they've been a part of planning processes that weren't used. So why bother? And so that sort of turns people off from trying again and doing it the right way, or a way that's different, as you said, sort of innovating on that. And I love the idea of starting with the big picture. That's how I think of strategic planning as a funnel. And you start with that big pie in the sky, because that is going to drive how you do everything else. And some folks have a hard time letting go of process and being in the weeds, because that's where we live every day. We have that urgency of like, but I'm putting out fires every day, and I'm on this hamster wheel, and how am I supposed to jump off and think big? But if we do think big, if we do go there, we actually will save ourselves so much time and energy in the long run. So it is a time saver. And that's where fundraising comes in. If we don't have a cohesive, clear, accessible plan for our funders to see that we have it together, and that we know where we want to go, and we know how we want to get there, and we just need their support, and they just need to plug in here or there, they're not going to believe that we can do what we say we want to do. So that, strategic plan can be a huge tool to use in funding conversations really successfully.
Absolutely. So, okay. And fundraising actually, it has to be supported by so many other elements, especially like marketing and things like that.
Sure.
But I love that you said it helps make things, well, you didn't, instead of
tool.
wasting time, you're making
Yeah.
things efficient.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I see in a lot of organizations, operations, they're just not efficient
Yeah.
or doing things effectively
Mm-hmm.
because,
Mm-hmm.
and I hate the term, because we've always done it that way.
It's true. It's true. Or
Yeah,
they're scattered because we're trying to, solve all these problems at once. And so we have mission creep and we've got all these things happening without alignment. So we want to
yes,
go from like scatter to alignment for that efficiency.
absolutely. And many times they don't realize that having a strategic plan, because many leaders are at the top, they feel as if they're by themselves. They're
Yeah.
in this little silo, and
Right.
it's I don't have any. A strategic plan will actually help them visualize
Mm-hmm.
how all of the different things are linked together.
Mm-hmm.
It will also help them learn how to delegate
Yes.
or assign different
Mm-hmm.
tasks so that they can know that it's being done, but they can take it off of their to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many, I'll say, add-ons to having a good strategic plan that, no, they're not written and said, this is what we're going for, but they're like the domino effect. There's side
Mm-hmm.
effects or residual effect of having a solid plan.
Right.
So yeah, it will help with burnout, scatter, wasted time, and all of those things that we always don't really think about, but they're there.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to touch on burnout for a second because that might be one that people are like, huh? How would it help with burnout? It's not just for the ED. If staff aren't sure where they fit in or how or aren't deeply connected to both the mission and their work, like I hear so many admin staff say, well, I just I'm a bean counter. I I I don't know how I'm really contributing. They have to see how they're contributing to be able to be part of that system, to be able to be delegated to and really do meaningful
And
work. So
I'm
yeah,
absolutely, I'm glad you brought that up. One of my
yeah,
previous guests, we talked about policies and procedures,
yes,
about the value of them and how
mhm,
it's not about managing people to have policies and procedures. It's
yeah,
to help them understand
mhm,
what their role
that's
and
right.
responsibilities are.
Yeah,
And when you're developing them, if you have them as a part of it,
hmm,
they
huge.
it's huge, and they have the buy-in and all,
Yes,
this policies and procedures can be a part of strategic planning.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's when you look at the big picture, and like let me say the big overall thing,
yeah.
everything is sort of woven together,
Hmm.
and it can happen through the strategic plan. The strategic
Right.
plan is like the roadmap
That's right.
of helping you accomplish all of these things that you want to do. So
Absolutely.
planning can and should be focused, fun, and effective.
Mhm.
I want to hear the fun part.
Yeah. How can strategic planning possibly be fun? I think it starts with what you said about coming together, maybe in a space that isn't, you don't create time normally for it. So you're able to come together, do that relationship building, and think outside the box.
Yes,
Think big, be creative, bounce ideas off of each other, and really just envision for a moment what the organization that you've started and that you're all working so hard on can accomplish, and that can be
absolutely.
really fun.
Yeah,
um, and then you have this opportunity to look at things differently, to talk to people, other stakeholders that you may not have engaged in a while. And so just looking at ways to not have it be drudgery, not have it be just checking boxes, but actually, like, how do we use this opportunity? We've committed to strategic planning. How do we do this differently? How do we really engage in this, and get inspired by what we're doing?
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, strategic planning has been around for like forever, and
Right.
people get in ruts on how it should be
Yes.
conducted. And
Yes.
and many times people will think all of the icebreakers and all of that, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is a waste of, why do we have to do this,
Mm-hmm.
but truly they have a purpose
Right.
in the whole process,
Sure.
because we have to break down some barriers very
Mm-hmm.
often.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get people to relax,
Mm-hmm.
and many people don't think that's an important part of the process,
Yeah.
that you have to be relaxed so
Mm-hmm.
that you can think clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I fun caught my attention because I'm
Yeah.
always in that.
It should be fun. I mean, this is, you're in this for a reason. You're not in nonprofits, to make money. You're there for a reason. And so reconnecting to that can be
Yeah.
really invigorating.
And also, I mean, fun means that you have tapped into emotions because you've gone into the happy place, or, you have. Therefore, the strategic plan becomes more memorable because another topic or point you put in your list here was so that it doesn't sit on the shelf.
That's right.
That's
right.
A strategic plan is a work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I talk to a lot of leaders who feel, oh, we did a strategic plan a couple of years ago. Our landscape has changed, as it does every moment. And we said we were going to do this, but now we can't do that. And they're all stressed out about it. And I'm like, that's part of the process.
Right.
It's written in sand. It's a guide, and then you may have to, within your journey, take
and
it
I think that needs to be explained early in the process that this is not the law.
That's right. It's a guide. It's a guide. You're allowed to jump off on another route occasionally.
I mean, and as you mentioned, times change. If we just looked at what technology has done over the last 5 years, and if organizations are still sticking and holding on with their bare knuckles to what they were doing in terms of marketing and technology 5 years ago, they're barely holding on. They're surviving. That's
right.
They're not going to survive. They're not going to be sustainable.
Or even program design. If you think about how much context has changed in our communities that we're serving, and the narratives that are driving what we need to do and what people's needs are, we need to be nimble and responsive to all of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that will prevent it from sitting on a shelf.
That's right.
And yes, it's in a binder sometimes.
Right.
But once again, thinking about technology, and this is a point I said, all of your documents should be in a shared folder where anyone can access them.
Yes. Yeah. And even more than that, because probably people might not access them, bring them. Bring them to the meeting. Have it be a standing agenda item where you check in about the strategic plan. Are we on track? Because that's such an important piece of implementation that we tend to, once the plan's in place, it's like, oh, that was good, and we move on. But that implementation piece is really important.
Yeah, you almost need to check. Well, what we are planning for the next quarter, is it in alignment with what we said we're going to do? Does it follow the tactics and strategies and goals that we have?
Exactly.
And if it not, then that means our or the course we're on needs to be adjusted somewhat. Or if the trends have changed, we'll note that adjustment and say and give the reasons why, and that would then go into that work in progress of strategic plan.
That's right.
I call it with your sidebar notes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that process should happen with staff and work planning processes, and it should happen with the board.
Yeah.
Because the board is there to support, those gaps and what you need them to do. And they need to know, they need to be informed on what's changed. They're not always as connected to that kind of.
And that's totally why I support having it in a place where everybody can access it. Even if they're notorious like me, who wakes up in the middle of the night with ideas.
Yeah.
That I can jump online and look at, do we have that in our strategic plan, and will it fit? That's
right.
Yeah. So that's okay, listeners. That's a strategy. Put it into a digital format where everybody can, and then share the link so they can get it.
And put it on your agenda. Standing item on your agenda.
That's absolutely. So that's your hot tip for right now with your strategic plan. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about getting the results you want with less effort. I'll just take that first part of that.
Yeah, getting the results you want. Yeah. I think often strategic plans are either too detailed and in the weeds and don't have that visioning process, or they stay 50,000-foot view in the visioning process and never get to the details of how do we actually get there. So I think a good process is going to have both really solidly, so that you know why you're doing certain things, certain tasks, certain tactics, strategies. You know why it's connected to that larger vision, and you have what you need to be able to take those next steps. And let's talk about outcomes for a minute, because every strategic planning process almost does it a little differently. And I think you really need to right size what level you want to name as outcomes. And we want to always, I say, go beyond activities. We are not wanting to measure just how many programs and how many participants. We want to measure the impact of those.
Impact.
So making, yeah, there's that word again, making sure our strategic plan is really naming and we know what milestones we need to reach to get to those results that we
And see,
truly want.
and that's going to take us full circle to what we talked about initially when we started talking about the difference between a business plan and
Yeah,
a program plan,
that's
because
right.
program plans are the foundational goal or
Mhm.
outcome is impact.
Yes,
And so
absolutely.
if we've
Yeah.
started there, we've now come full circle. Hey, there was a
Yeah.
reason why I started with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. That's
That
right. Yeah,
we
it's true. I mean, if we start with impact and then create a business plan that helps us get to that impact, we're in much better shape than being driven by fundraising and
absolutely
not knowing why we're doing that. Yeah.
well, if you know what your impact is,
Mm-hmm.
it supports fundraising
Mm-hmm.
because you can talk
Absolutely.
about what you do. See, fundraising, like I said, fundraising is dependent on so many other things. It is not
Yeah,
the tactic itself. It
that's
is
right.
just you need all of these strategies to make it
Mm-hmm.
happen. You need
Mm-hmm.
marketing, communications, impact reports, or
Right.
proof of impact, which
Right.
might come in testimonials and all of those
Mm-hmm.
things. All of those can be identified or mapped out through your
Yeah.
program plan,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is the guiding factor of, here we go, your
Yeah.
strategic plan.
That's right. Yeah. And any good strategic plan will include, a focus on programs. And then if you need it, operations, finance, and fundraising, all of those things should be included in your plan so that it's
Well, absolutely, yeah,
comprehensive.
because it supports what the program needs in
Yeah.
order to be effective.
Yeah. That's right.
How
Hmm.
much money do we need to raise this year so we can do these programs? How much
Yeah.
that means, and that will impact how your fundraising strategies will look like. That will
Yes.
impact what staff you need. That
Hmm.
impacts that word
That's
everything
yeah.
down that ladder of what
That's
what,
right.
what you're doing. Okay, so one of the last things you have here, don't let traditional fundraising, I mean not fundraising, strategic planning, and I think we've shown that we're not talking about traditional
Right. Yeah.
strategic
That's right.
planning at this
Yeah.
point at all.
Yeah.
But you said don't let traditional strategic planning keep your organization from getting what it needs to thrive. Is there a bullet list or a couple things that you want to identify that they need?
Yeah. I think that they need, I mean, that's up to the organization at the time and where it is in its development, right? The needs change over time. But whatever those needs are, the point there is don't let your past experience with strategic planning or what you think it should look like, because it's probably based on a different field altogether, like a corporate strategic planning process. Don't let those past experiences stop you from trying again and doing it differently.
I'm
Um,
so glad you pointed that out. Many, I'll say, board members
yeah.
are on several different boards,
Uh-huh.
and they try to fit all of these
Yes.
organizations into one box
That's right.
versus looking at each organization separately and saying, okay, what does this process need to look like for this organization? Instead of,
Yes.
and I call that the easy path. Well, we've always done it this way. Or,
That's right.
you know,
Yep.
it's what is needed at this time, at
Hmm.
this point for
Yeah.
this organization, and
Yeah.
be flexible enough
Hmm.
to allow it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the initial tools we always use is a needs assessment where everyone can have a point of view, but really gather that information of what are our needs right now so that your strategic planning process is focused and not trying to cover everything when you already have things set in certain areas.
Yes.
So it doesn't need to try to encompass all things all the time. Focus on
Okay.
what you
So,
need.
oh my God, so much information. So, as we wrap up, do you have any last points that you
Mm,
want to just make them keep as the burn in your brain topic?
okay. Yeah. So, don't be afraid of strategic planning. It can be fun. It can, and it's just so necessary for an effective organization to truly reach the results you want. So it is something that has to be done at some point if you really want to get the results. So look into ways that you can really make it work for you, I think.
Absolutely. So if they wanted to reach out to you, I noticed that that you have a quick start quiz. What is that all about?
Yeah, so we are really excited. We've done a lot of big strategic planning processes with different nonprofits across the US. And we realized that our small to medium nonprofit partners don't always have the resources to bring some big consultancy in and do a big process. So we want to put the tools in the hands of our nonprofit partners that are in that situation. So we've created an online course, super affordable, with step by step. Each module has all kinds of tools and worksheets to just take you step by step through the process. And one of the tools that we're giving away for free right now to sort of give you a sense of what that's like is that quick start quiz. And it's part of that needs assessment. It's helping
Okay.
you see where are the gaps, what do you need to focus on.
Yeah, and that is so important, because many times they're so entrenched in the day-to-day.
Yes.
They don't know how to go and take what I call that airplane view, to look down at the entire organization to see where I call it the chain has breaks in the links or things like that.
Right.
Gaps.
Right.
Absolutely. I will make sure that they get the URL for that, impactlaunch.l pages, but it will definitely be in this publication of this podcast. It has been my pleasure to have you on the show, Megan.
Thank you so much.
I hope everybody reaches out to you, because it is, just start out to find out where you are. That first step to take an assessment. My pleasure having you on the show, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria. It was a
Impact
pleasure.
Launch. I love that name, Impact Launch. And I hope to see you real soon on another podcast. This has been Dr. Victoria Boyd with the Nonprofit Corner podcast, and we will see you next time.